There have been developments this week in the long-simmering battle over redistricting. First came a report that the Senate Republicans are considering the addition of a 63rd seat, which would end the threat of a 31-31 stalemate, but also likely boost their chances of retaining the majority next fall. And Senate Democrats say that move would be unconstitutional. Not surprising. Also, reformers experienced a bit of a setback this week when the good government community split over creation of an independent redistricting commission. Joining me now to discuss this news is Senator Mike Gianaris. He is a Democrat, he's from Queens, and he is at our sister station, New York 1. Senator, great to see you.
Thank you, Liz. Good to be with you.
You're running the risk of being a one-note pony, which is not the way that that's supposed to be, but all we ever talk to you about is redistricting. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that.
You should have me on for other things, Liz.
We're working on it, maybe Con Ed. But seriously, today we see that the good government community has splintered. Common Cause says, you know what, too late for independent redistricting commission. There are other things we can do. Doesn't this set you guys back a bit?
No, the important thing to remember is that we're all on the same page in terms of the result that we want to achieve. And that is a fair redistricting plan that meets the criteria of minimal population deviation, not drawn for partisan advantage, a lot of the things that the entire good government community agrees upon. The issue of an independent commission is important because we don't trust LAT 4 to do that properly.
Right.
The fact is there is enough time to do both things. The Senate Republicans unanimously promised last year to both set up an independent commission and to do it fairly. They should be held to that promise. And I think that's what you heard from Mayor Koch and some of the good government groups today. And more importantly, Governor Cuomo, who's been a great champion, has promised to veto anything but. So we're still in the same place we were. It's just that we're struggling to get to the goal we're all trying to achieve.
Okay, but there's been some suggestion that by having one goo-goo group, if you will, split away and say, look, you know, okay, we still want nonpartisan redistricting, but we can do it in a way that we have a quasi-independent commission where we have legislators appoint people who are not them to do this redrawing, which, you know, it is getting a little late here, particularly if you move up the primary into the summer, but that's a different issue. I mean, that gives Governor Cuomo maybe some wiggle room to cut a deal with the Senate Republicans. If he does that, will you be upset?
Well, let's be clear. This is the gang, talking about the Senate Republicans, this is the gang that promised to do this fairly and independently and walked away from it. So the problem is that we don't have faith. I think no one in the state has faith, as evidenced by the Quinnipiac poll this week, that this gang could do this fairly or that we can trust that they will.
But
yes,
okay,
yes, Liz.
Continue. If some quasi-independent.
I was going to say, if somehow a group that's controlled by the Senate Republicans produces a plan against all odds, against what all of us believe is the case, that is fair, then that would be terrific. We'd have a fair plan. But no one really believes that's going to happen. And as long as you have either a process where the commission is one step removed but still controlled by them, or you're looking at the LAT 4 commission itself, you're going to end up with a result that the governor has promised to veto, and we're going to be back where we started from, which is that a judge is going to appoint a special master, and that's where the lines are going to come from.
Let's talk briefly about timing here, actually. As I mentioned, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, at the federal level, is pressuring New York about the issue of military ballots, right? The question is whether or not people who are overseas and serving in the military have enough time to file their ballots and have them get counted. Do I have that right?
That's right.
Okay, so they're threatening legal action again against the state if we don't get our act together, and the likelihood is that they've got to push the primary up sometime into the summer. If that happens, when do you need these lines to be drawn?
Well, let me just first say they're not threatening legal action. They actually have instituted legal action.
Right.
There's a court case that's already underway. The next hearing date is October the 20th, and Judge Sharp has indicated that if this issue is not resolved by then, he's going to take steps to resolve it for us.
Okay.
When the date might be, we don't know. He has made it clear that it needs to be at least 80 days before the general election, so I think at the latest it could be the middle of August. There are some who are advocating for a date at the end of June. We'll have an answer to that within the next month and a half or so.
I still don't understand why the legislature didn't just address this issue before you guys left town. I mean, I understand the Senate Republicans want August, the Democrats maybe want June. I mean, the reality is it's not going to be good for either side. So I don't know why didn't you just deal with it?
It's a terrific question, and you should ask the people that control the Senate, because you can also ask them why we didn't do a health care exchange bill, which is critically important, and we left a lot of unfinished business on the table.
Well, speaking of the Senate Republicans, there's this report now that they might add a 63rd seat, as I mentioned. This is not new. They did this, if I remember, the last time they did redistricting. It basically dilutes the number of people who are in every district and increases their odds at keeping the majority. You say it's illegal?
Yeah, well, it is. It's not just me saying that. There's a long and detailed history of what is required. This is not a matter of discretion for the legislature. The state constitution provides the formula for how many senators there need to be in this state. 10 years ago, there was an argument that the formula allowed for an extra senator, and the Republicans availed themselves of that. But any way you look at the formula under the current population numbers, there's no way to justify a 63rd senator. So that would be an unconstitutional effort. And surprise, surprise, when we're talking about who's drawing the lines and whether they could be fair, they're talking about violating the Constitution in an effort to hold on to their majority. So that should give you an indication as to whether LADFOR is capable of producing fair lines.
Well, there's definitely no question as to what side you're on, seriously. But but from a sort of theoretical standpoint, would you not agree that going back to an odd number in some way would be better than having this threat of 31-31 hanging over your head all the time?
Well, let me say two things about that. Number one, you're speaking about this as a matter of policy, not as a matter of constitutional requirements. So as a matter of policy, if you want to make that argument, then what we should do to fit within the constraints of the Constitution is go down back to 61 seats,
is that legal?
Which would be justified.
Can you do that?
Yeah, well, that would... We believe that would be justified. There was an argument 10 years ago as to whether adding the 62nd seat was legal, but it was arguably in a gray area where it could have gone either way. The Republicans interpreted the Constitution one way and added the senator. There is no argument that passes the straight face test this time for adding a 63rd. If they want to make it up, let them go down to 61, but 63 seats, or we actually heard a rumor of 65, would be completely unjustified and against the Constitution.
Wow, 65 senators. That's a lot of senators. Okay. Well, obviously, you know, I say this every time we have this discussion about redistricting, but it is an ongoing story. We will be covering it ongoing. And I know if people are getting sick of it, I'm so sorry. It really is important. It's very important. It is, because a lot of stuff is hanging in the balance at the House level. Obviously, control of the Senate is a big issue. And we will be seeing you again, Mike Gianaris, I'm sure. Maybe next time we'll talk about energy.
Next time, maybe the health care exchange.
The health care exchange. Okay. You have. I will consider your request. In the meantime, thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz.